Hey everyone, welcome. So you've probably gotten pretty good with Power BI, right? You can connect to data, you can build a decent looking report, but today we're gonna level up. We're talking about shifting your entire mindset from just being a person who builds reports to someone who architects solutions, the kind of solutions that can scale across an entire company. Let's dive in.
So let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Is the stuff you're building right now, is it really built to last? Will it still be working 6 months from now when the data has doubled? Or a year from now when you have 10 times the users? Or is it going to crumble under the weight of all that new data and all those complex new questions? See, building something robust, something that actually lasts, that takes a totally different way of thinking.
So here's what we're going to cover to get you there. First, we're going to talk about moving beyond just making basic dashboards. Then we'll dive deep into mastering the data model. This is a big one. After that, we'll get into optimizing for performance, making things fast. And finally, we'll zoom all the way out and talk about scaling for the entire enterprise.
All right, section 1. This is all about making a mental shift. We've got to stop thinking about just the final, pretty chart and start focusing on the invisible structure, the architecture that holds the whole thing up.
Look, anybody can drag and drop a bar chart onto a canvas. This isn't about that. This is about engineering a real solution. We're talking about the core principles that let a business intelligence platform grow, that keep it trustworthy and make sure it performs reliably, whether it's for 10 people in your department or 10,000 across the globe.
Now for section 2. And honestly, this is maybe the most important part. If your Power BI solution is a building, the data model is the foundation. And if you have a weak foundation, well, the whole building is at risk. Get this part right, and you are setting yourself up for success. Get it wrong, and you are heading straight for a world of slow reports, wrong numbers, and very confused users.
So what's the secret? It's a concept called the STAR schema. This is the industry standard, the gold-plated best practice for analytical models. The single biggest mistake people make is they try to just flatten everything out into one giant table. The STAR schema fixes that. It forces you to get organized by classifying every single one of your tables as one of two specific types. And here are those two types. On one side, you have your dimension tables. Just think of these as your who, what, where, and when. They describe the things in your business, your products, your customers, your store locations. Then on the other side, you've got your fact tables. These are the numbers, the events, the stuff you actually measure, like sales dollars or the number of units sold. But why do we do this? What's the point of separating them? Because it makes everything work beautifully. Your users can just go to the dimension tables to slice and dice their data, and then they go to the fact tables to get the numbers they want to summarize. It's clean, it's logical, and the Power BI engine is built from the ground up to run incredibly fast with this design.
Of course, the real world is always a little messier, right? Sometimes you need to analyze things in a way that feels like you're breaking the rules. For instance, maybe you want to see which customers bought a certain product and then see all the other products those same customers bought. To do that, you need something more advanced, like bidirectional filtering, which lets your filters travel upstream against the normal flow of the relationships.
Oh man, we have all been here. You drag a few fields onto a visual, you're expecting to see a number, and you get nothing. Just a blank. Or worse, you get a number that makes absolutely no sense. 9 times out of 10, the culprit is a problem with your model relationships. Okay, deep breath. Before you start pulling your hair out, just walk through this checklist. First, make it simple. Change your visual to a plain old table or matrix just to see the raw data. Second, sanity check. Is there actually data in your tables? Then jump over to the model view. Do the relationships you think exist actually exist? Are they active, meaning is the line solid, not dashed? And finally, check the cardinality and the filter direction. I promise you, working through these steps methodically will solve almost all of your relationship headaches. All right, let's move on to section 3 and talk about something everyone wants: speed. Because let's be real, a report that's 100% accurate but takes 5 minutes to load is a report that nobody is ever going to use. We're going to focus on 2 huge levers for performance: how you get the data and what you do with it. First up, a concept called query folding. Now this sounds super technical, but the idea is actually brilliant. It's all about making Power BI push the hard work, like filtering rows or removing columns, back to the original source, like your SQL database. Let the database do the heavy lifting before the data even gets to your machine. So how do you know if this magic is actually happening? It's super easy to check. In the Power Query editor,
go to your list of applied steps on the right, and just right-click the very last one. If that option, View Native Query, is clickable and not grayed out, boom, you're folding. And if you click it, you see this. This is the actual native SQL code that Power BI wrote and sent back to the database. This is your proof. The database is doing all that transformation work, and Power BI just gets the final, clean result. It's so much more efficient.
Okay, so getting the data into the model efficiently is one half of the performance story. The other half is all about how you write your calculations, your DAX measures. A single, badly written measure can bring even the most perfectly designed model to its knees.
So take a look at this classic example, calculating year-over-year growth. In the before version, you can see that the formula calculates last year's sales twice. It does the exact same calculation 2 different times. But look at the after version. Here, we calculate last year's sales just once, and we store it in a variable. Then we just reuse that variable. It's cleaner, it's way easier to read, and
It's way, way faster. How much faster? In this case, making that one simple change, just using a variable, cut the query time in half, a 50% improvement from one small tweak. This is probably the single most impactful optimization you can make when you're writing DAX.
Okay, last section. We've built a solid model, we've made it fast, but how do we take this awesome little Power BI file from our laptop and turn it into a trusted, governed, enterprise-wide asset? To do that, we have to stop thinking like a builder and start thinking like a strategist.
And this, right here, is where so many amazing technical projects fall down. You can build the most technically perfect, beautifully designed data model in the world. But if it just lives in a vacuum, if it's not governed, if people don't trust the data in it, or even know how to use it, then it's a failure. Your technical skill has to be paired with a real strategic plan.
So what does a good plan actually look like? Well, it usually boils down to these key pillars. You have to define your BI strategy. You absolutely need to get buy-in from leadership. You have to be crystal clear about Power BI's role. You've got to assess your risks. And this last one is so important. You have to find that tricky balance between empowering your users to explore and maintaining enough control to prevent total chaos.
I absolutely love this piece of advice because it touches on a skill that's not technical at all, but is so critical for success: communication. Getting people on board, training them, managing the change, it all requires constant, clear communication. So if you get to a point where you feel like you're starting to repeat yourself, you're probably doing it just right. And that really leaves us with the one big question you should take away from all this. As you go from being a practitioner to a strategist, this is the question you have to keep asking yourself. Is what we're building truly empowering our users with trusted data, or are we just enabling chaos by giving them tools without a plan? A great data model, fast performance, and a clear governance strategy